if you can make a witty statement, then you can make people laugh. You can make people think that you're a genius. That's the power of wit. Wit is something that gives you power of ingenuity over others. So what is wit? Wit is generally a verbal statement. If you have wit, you have the capacity to make those verbal statements that can make people laugh. No, these are not jokes. Mind this meaning. This is not joke. Verbal statement, which has to qualify to be called a wit, has to produce a statement which can give people a surprise, a comic surprise. And this sentence, this verbal statement has to be deft and brief, and it has to be clever. I know this is just a definition I'm giving you, but I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example that how a sentence can be witty. I'll give you an example. History repeats itself. Historians repeat each other. In the first part, history repeats itself. You have heard it a long time. History is going to repeat itself again and again. People are going to commit the same mistakes again and again. They are not going to learn from their past. But in the next part of the sentence, historians, the one who collect the data and write history, historians repeat each other. So it has put you in a shock of comic surprise. You are expecting something else, but the second part, the rest of the part has put you into comic relief, and not only comic surprise, but also it makes you think, wow, history is repeating itself and historians repeating each other. You find that the one who has written this sentence, I am forgetting his name. If you know the name of the speaker, you can just write down in the comment section. History repeats itself, historians repeat itself. So it is putting you into a thinking pattern. Wow, what a combination. So in modern way, wit is a power of making quick, ingenious, deft verbal statements that can make you feel funny and intelligent. Let me give you the history of this word, because this is important, because this is a literary lecture and I have to give you the history. And I'm not going to repeat the history, but I'll just repeat the other historians. So in Old English, back in around 450 AD, there was a word called witten, W-I-T-A-N, witten. It meant to know. To know means, what do you know? To know doesn't mean that you know who is the Prime Minister of Zambia or Alexandria. To know means, how do you know about the environment around you? You know it because you have eyes, you have ears, you have your tongue, you have your skin, and there are five. You can write down in the comment section which one I left. So you have got five senses through which you know the world around you. If you can't see, if you can't speak, if you can't hear, if you can't feel the presence, if you cannot taste it, then how your mind is going to comprehend the reality? So that means wit in the Old English meant to know. So if your five senses are working, that means you are on your wits. So if your senses are not working, then your common sense is not working. So wits generally meant to be with common intelligence in old days. So, but the meaning has changed drastically, because when this word was in the beginning shape, it meant to know. Now it meant mental cleverness, verbal cleverness. So there was a period of 1500 years. In those 1500 years, the meaning had changed. So now I'm going to tell you that how this meaning has changed. And it is very interesting for the literature students, because this wit is going to come again and again in your way when you try to understand the poets of metaphysical poetry, Alexander Pope, and 19th century writers and poets like Matthew Arnold, and there Hazlitt. So you are going to come across this word wit again and again. So that's why you need to understand it. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe it and hit the bell icon. So in the Renaissance period, the English Renaissance, it started around 1550 and it ended around 1650, approximate dates. These are the approximate dates. So in these days, the period of Renaissance, the reawakening, it meant the ability, the talent, the aptitude to make a poem. That's all. For Sydney, it was an ability to make a poem. And how do we make a poem? Yes, how do we make a poem? In a poem, you use different words, different things, and put them together. How? You compare your lover with moon. Your moon is 3 lakh kilometers away from this earth, and your lover is on the earth. So there's a difference of kilometers, millions of kilometers, but you still compare them because you have a poetic genius. So in Renaissance, it was an ability to compare two things together. So if someone has wits, he could write a poem. But this meaning was there in Renaissance. Then the meaning has changed. There was a section called metaphysical poetry. In those poets, you will see that they are using two different things, completely different things. They are using different figure of speech, and the way they used figure of speech, it was known as the conceit, using two dissimilar things and yoke them together. For example, in one of the poetry of John Donne, that he compared the biting of fly to a marriage. He said, the fly that bites you and sucks your blood, the same fly bites me and sucks my blood too. And our blood gets mixed up inside that fly. And that's how we are married. So can you see? The fly is biting you and me, and a fly has the same blood, yours and mine, and we are married. Of course, literally it doesn't happen, but in the poet's eye, it happened. So this was a conceit, to use two different things together. So this process was called, the person who do this process was called the person of wits. After that period, after the period of Renaissance, the Shakespearean period in English history, there came a period of Pope, Alexander Pope. Alexander Pope said, wit doesn't only mean, wit has something different, to conformity to the old patterns. Conformity to the old patterns. Like, you're not saying something new in the wits, you're just expressing the old best values in your writings. So I'll give you an example. Pope said, what oft was thought, but never so well expressed. So this was the sentence. It generally meant that what was oft thought means it was thought so many times in the past. Now you only have to express it. So you are not expressing something new, but you are expressing the old, but wrapping your words around it. Then came Romanticism. In Romanticism, the meaning was, the wit came to be associated with fancy, imagination. In poetry, you need imagination. So many critics say that Romanticism brought the meaning of wit to a lower level. So wit generally meant fancy. And then came the 19th century. The 19th century, we had so many writers, and they found wit very derogatory. They thought that wit is just simply making funny remarks, and that brought wit down to the ground level. So I'll give an example. Matthew Arnold, in his famous books, in which he included the greatest poets of English history, and he did not include Chaucer. He did not include Alexander Pope, because they thought they lack high seriousness. high seriousness. High seriousness is a literary term. I will tell you in the next, probably in the next video and in the upcoming video. But for example, you just need to understand that Matthew Arnold did not include Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, and Alexander Pope in the list of great poets because he did not find in them high seriousness, the ability to put serious treatment into poetic subject. But later, T.S. Eliot made a comeback and brought the power of wit to a higher level. How did he do it? In his famous metaphysical poetry, he included Donne and Marvel. And he said that they had wits and high seriousness also, the balance of wits and high seriousness. So he gave, I think, the new discussion to the metaphysical poetry, which was long forgotten. So now we come to the present time. The wit generally means the verbal deftness. Yes, how skilled you are to make a clever, funny statement. That's it. So I've given an example. Now, if you go to the literary works, then you will find out many examples. In an essay on which I have given my lecture, you will find it was the lecture on Bertrand Russell, and you will find that he has made so many witty remarks about politicians, about ignorance, about many things. So you just need to go to that lecture, and you will find that lecture over here. And I hope you like this lecture. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, then I'll ask you to subscribe. Thank you so much for listening to me, and have a great day.